Hi, good morning all. I am Dr. Ajat Praveen Dimri, Associate Professor, Marketing, Himalayan School of Management Studies, Swami Ram Himalayan University. In the ongoing series of lectures, today we will be talking about the consumer behavior. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know that the consumer is the one who is the end user of the product. Ultimately, products and services, goods and services are meant to be consumed by the individual. The person is called consumer. So, in today's discussion, we will be talking about the understanding of consumer behavior, whereas we will start with the first thing, that is, what is consumer behavior? The consumer behavior is the study of individuals, groups or organizations and all the activities associated with purchase, use and disposal of goods and services. So, we consider here three elements, that is the purchase of goods or services, the usage or the consumption of it, and ultimately how the one disposes it of. The study of this process and the procedure is called as consumer behavior. Consumer behavior consists of how the consumer's emotions, attitudes and preferences affect buying behavior. Obviously, the consumer cannot stand alone without consumer's emotions, attitudes and preferences. So, we need to consider these elements also once we are talking about the consumer behavior. Let us talk about certain specifications or the definitions given by various philanthropists. Very first, given by Angel Blackwell and Mansard. This definition says, consumer behavior is the process of decision making and action while consumer goods or services for personal use. So, this definition focuses on the consumer decision making, means there are the choices and one has to take a decision for the personal consumption. This definition is focusing on the personal uses of the goods or services. Then there is one more definition given by very popular Loudon and Bitta, very popular book by these people along with the Schiffman, Loudon and Bitta. They say consumer behavior is the process of physical activity which individuals engage in evaluating, using or disposing of product or services. So, here the focus is on the physical involvement of individuals, where they are going for evaluating the identified product, the using it and obviously the ultimately disposing it. Now, the question comes, what is the nature of consumer behavior as a subject, as a stream? So, if you start with the first nature of consumer behavior is complex and dynamic in nature. Complexity means it is not very easy to assess how the individual will behave for what region, means the cause and effect relationship establishment is pretty difficult to establish. So, we call it the complex. Why the individual is behaving in a particular passion at a moment and tomorrow the person is totally different, it is very difficult to anticipate. It becomes difficult, it becomes complex. Then it is dynamic in nature. What consumers were behaving 10 years back, probably it is not the pattern of behavior today. We can see the movie watching behavior is also changing, right from the theatre to multiplexes, the single screen theatres to multiplexes. If you talk of the eating habits, we have started having food outside more now. So, it keeps on changing since society is changing, environment is dynamic, all the factors of the environment are dynamic. So, they have a great impact on the dynamic nature of consumer behavior. The technology is changing, the society is changing, the political systems are being more changed now. So, we call it is complex and dynamic. Then the second nature of consumer behavior is consumer behavior vary across regions. Regions here, the geographies, it can change. The consumer who lives in rural areas probably is having a different behavior, and the one who is living in city, semi-urbs or metropolitans, they have a different approach of behavior. One can distinctly find it. Not only in rural and urban, even across the countries, across the continents, you will find some differences in the behavior. People residing in European continents, they have a different behavioral pattern, whereas in Asian continental people, they have a different behavioral pattern. So, yes, it varies across the regions. Then another thing is, the behavior of a consumer gets influenced by various factors. Means our behavior is an outcome of an influence of various factors implied on us. These factors may be the influence of family, these factors may be the influence of culture, the friends, lifestyle, and many more. So, it gets influenced by different factors. Once we are through with the nature of consumer behavior, which is very complex, dynamic, keeps on changing, has different influences of different factors, we need to understand why to study consumer behavior. What is the significance or the importance of consumer behavior? Dear friends, the companies are more keen in understanding the behavior of consumer so that, number one, they could frame their production policies. It is consumer-driven era. Today, everything is being guided and directed by the consumer's behavior. Companies would be forced to design the product and their production policies as per the requirement of the consumer. If consumer is asking for something, they need to develop it. If consumer has stopped using something, they need to shut it down. So, production policies would be decided by consumer behavior. So, we need to have an eye on the changing consumer behavior. So, one can say, yes, production policies are getting influenced by consumer behavior. And obviously, once the productions are being decided by consumer behavior, the second thing is the pricing policies. Consumer is not ready to buy the product for a set price. So, you need to mold the pricing in a way that consumer accepts it. And for survival of you as a company, you need to alter your pricing policies. Certain amendments and changes are needed to be done in order to get consumers' attention towards your pricing. Certain discounts, certain schemes, coupons, these things are to be decided. Whether you go with the competitor's pricing strategy, whether you go with the penetrating pricing strategy, you go with the skimming pricing strategy, that everything would be decided by the consumer's expectations, and you need to understand as a company what the consumer is expecting. So, it becomes important to understand consumer behavior in order to decide the prices. Then, the channel of distribution. If consumer is expecting this product is to be delivered through a shop, a near retail shop, so definitely you need to deliver it through it. Or if the consumer is expecting this thing is to be delivered in hybrid mode of delivery system, the exclusive showroom or the retail shop, mixed both, so you need to think about it. So, choice of distribution channel will definitely depend greatly on the consumer's expectations, because ultimately consumer will decide the fate and the future of the company. Then comes decisions regarding sales promotions. There are multiple sales promotion schemes. There can be consumer related sales promotion, there can be industry related or trade related sales promotion. So, all these sales promotion schemes are to be opted or designed by the point of view of the consumer. So, sales promotion is also something to be adapted as per the consumer's expectations and behavior. And since it keeps on changing, so you need to be very flexible with your sales promotion schemes. Then comes exploiting market opportunities. There are multiple opportunities in the market. Once you are having an eye on the consumer's behavior, definitely you can get to know that what is on, what can be sold right now. So, you need to focus on marketing opportunities. Those can be exploited with changing paradigm. Then comes consumer do not always act or react predictably. Yes, it gets governed by the psyche, it gets governed by the state of mind, it gets governed by the hormonal flow. So, definitely the state of mind is not very much predictable, it is not linear in prediction. It can be surprising. Sometimes consumer buys huge and many a times he or she goes blank. It means every time you cannot predict the behavior of one individual. Probably he's happy, she is happy at the moment, and you anticipate that the person will buy a lot and he lands with no purchase. This can be one possibility. So there are multiple dimensions of this predictability. So you need to focus on it. So you need to understand the importance of consumer behavior. That's why it becomes very, very important to understand the regions of changes in the behavior. Then comes highly diversified consumer preferences. There is no sync or synchronicity in the preference. Probably in eating, the consumer has a different preference criteria, but in clothing, he or she has a different preference criteria. So you cannot correlate both easily. Then comes implementing the marketing concepts. Obviously, the consumer behavior is one that allows the markets or the companies to segment the consumer mass or the market. So the segmenting, the targeting and the positioning needed to be addressed by studying the consumer behavior properly. So these are certain points where we can understand why consumer behavior becomes important. A quick recap of these points once again. Production policies are to be decided by the consumer behavior. The price policy again to be decided by the consumer behavior studies. The decision regarding channel of distribution, we need to focus more on the consumer behavior. Decision regarding sales promotion, exploiting market opportunities, consumer do not always act or react predictably, highly diversified consumer preferences and implementing marketing concepts. So after importance of consumer behavior, let's talk about the factors those are responsible for shaping the consumer behavior. What are the most common factors those are responsible for an individual's behavior in a particular condition? So factors can be 4 or 5 in categories. We'll start with the one that is obviously the psychological factor. Psyche, the factor of mind. The psychological factors are very important once you understand the influencing factors of consumer behavior. And very first and the foremost factor in psychological factor is motivation of consumer. What motivates the consumer at the moment or in general, the consumer will behave to justify that motivation. That fire comes from within. Individuals have different needs such as social needs, how my society is around me, how do I connect with the society, the basic need, the food, shelter and clothing needs, the security needs, security from various insecurities of the life, the physical insecurity, the insecurity of relationships, the esteem need and obviously the self-actualization needs. Most of these needs are being covered by the A.H. Maslow's need hierarchy theory. You might have seen that ladder going up and ending with self-actualization, but starting with the basic and the primary need, that is the survival need and the security need. It is the ranked top need of consumer, and these are the needs those motivate a consumer to buy a product or services. After motivation, the another important psychological factor is perception. Perception is nothing, it's just the way we see our surrounding with the help of our sense organs. Those are 5 in number. We take input of the surrounding, of the environment, and we organize those input and give a meaning to that event or object. So this perception, that is our understanding of the surrounding, also confirms the consumer behavior, because whatever I understand about my surrounding, I'll react and respond accordingly. So it's my sense organs alertness, reception and processing of my mind based on my experience and other warehouse inputs, and then I give an interpretation to those inputs, and this shapes my world for me, and my world includes my behavior also. Our perception is shaped when we gather information regarding a product and examine it to generate a relevant image regarding a certain product. whenever we see an advertisement, review, feedback, or promotion regarding a product, we form an image of that item. For example, an Audi ad is being reflected on television, on digital media either. So the buyer can be of various categories. If the buyer is a communal or a general individual or a middle income grouped individual, so definitely the image would be, okay, this product is out of my coverage area. So we are gathering information, we are understanding it, and we are giving an interpretation that we cannot think of buying it at the moment. So this happens because our perception is asking us to build an opinion based on it. It is an interpretation of an advertisement reflected on the media. Then comes, as a result, our perception plays an integral role in shaping our purchasing decision, obviously. After perception, there's one more thing, that is learning, also synonymized by conditioning. Learning is nothing but a relatively permanent change in one's behavior. Remember those days when you are not knowing to ride a cycle, now you know it and you know it forever. So it's a kind of relatively permanent change in my behavior. I started speaking when I was a kid, but I learned it and it is there forever with me. So one can say it's a relatively permanent change. I got to know that tea is hot and this is a lesson for lifetime for me. So this is a relatively permanent change in my behavior. That's why when a person buys a product, the general tendency is to learn something more about the product. We are inquisitive, eager to know more. We explore information, and these informations are in our limitations. These informations are our informations. So our learning patterns are slightly different from others' learning patterns. So this learning will definitely develop a habit or a behavior in me. Learning also comes over a period through experience. This learning depends on skills and knowledge. While skills can be gained through practice, if you don't know computer, you practice it, you'll get to know. If you don't know a foreign language, you practice, you'll get to know. This is something skill. Knowledge can be acquired only through experience. If you experience firsthand, you'll acquire knowledge. Learning can be either conditional or cognitive. In conditional learning, the consumer is exposed to situation continuously to develop a response towards it. Very popular classical conditioning example of Ivan Pavlov, you might have heard that. Dog was trained to change its behavior of salivating at the ring of the bell. So what they did, same happened here. So we can call it conditional learning. A condition were created. Whereas in cognitive learning, the consumer applies his or her knowledge and skills to find satisfaction from the product that she or he buys. So learning becomes very important. There are multiple theories of understanding learning, classical, instrumental, social, there are many. Then comes the individual's attitudes and beliefs. Attitudes are the learned predispositions the individual acquires from its surrounding through various formal and informal institutions. Formal institutions means the colleges, the schools. Informal institutions means the family, the friends. Consumers' attitudes and beliefs also influence the buying decision. I buy the prasadam in Indian philosophy because I have a strong belief for that prasadam. I have a positive inclination, the positive attitude for that prasadam. I bow my head in front of a temple. Why? Because this behavior is coming out of my belief. My religion has taught me to do so, and this got embedded in my behavior. Based on this attitude, the consumer behaves in a particular way towards a product. Ham, burger is not being liked very much by Indians. So why? Because we have an attitude towards ham. This attitude plays a significant role in defining the brand image of a product. If I rate a Canon brand high, I like it more, so definitely there would be a positive inclination and reputation in my mind. Excuse me. So brand reputation of the Canon would be pretty high in my mind. Why? Because my attitude for Canon brand is very high, very positive. I like it more. Or the other way around, if I dislike the products, those are not indigenous, those are not being made in India, we call a very popular term Swadeshi. So probably the all multinational brands are in my negative attitude categories. So the brand loyalty is a result of our attitude and belief. There are various theories given for explaining the model of attitude. There are tri-component model. Those talk about the attitude is comprised of 3 components. They have their different roles. One is the strong rooted warehouse, another is the fluid like emotion, and the above all is the expressive function of it. So we call it cognitive, affective, and behavioral. So there are more models of explaining this. We'll discuss it once we talk about the attitude separately in forthcoming sessions. So this way, attitude and beliefs of ours also shape our behavior. So for the moment, we'll pause it here and we'll come with the session 2 for the same session, the consumer behavior influencing factors. Till the time, keep learning. Thank you.